It's time for position previews, and first up, we're talking catchers. Up next on Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Welcome into FBT Express on Monday, February 3rd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. We are here to talk about catchers. Scott, let's begin with a sleeper at the catcher position. What do you have?
Sleeper at the catcher position is going to be Sean Murphy, who has been a pretty big flop the past couple years, but I think the Braves showed a lot of confidence in him this offseason by declining Travis d'Arnaud's option for a very reasonable amount, by the way. A couple years ago, they traded for Sean Murphy, actually gave up William Contreras in the deal, and it's been, I think, frustrating for everybody involved that d'Arnaud was stealing so much playing time for him. So I almost wondered if a part of it is just they weren't trying to save money, shave off as much payroll as they could. But part of it was I think they wanted to actually recoup some value from that Sean Murphy trade and the subsequent extension he signed. Last year, he suffered a bad oblique injury on opening day, missed a couple months, and never seemed right after that. Wasn't getting consistent playing time with d'Arnaud there, as had always been the problem. But it was just a couple years ago, Sean Murphy was a consensus top 5 catcher going into the season. So I'll give him a pass for last year, especially since the Braves are showing that confidence in him. And I'm going to call Sean Murphy a sleeper right now when nobody's expecting much from him.
Yep, the ADP for Sean Murphy on Fantasy Pros is 226.4 as the 14th catcher off the board. We're in complete agreement. I do like Sean Murphy to bounce back this season as well. Someone else I like is Ivan Herrera. I think he is sneaky because Wilson Contreras is moving over from catcher to first base. So that creates a void at the catcher position. And Ivan Herrera does a lot of things well. Strong plate discipline. He hits a lot of line drives. He put up really impressive numbers at AAA in his minor league career. And last season, he actually finished out very strong for the Cardinals. Final 32 games for Herrera. He hit .349 with 2 homers, 11 doubles, 4 steals, and a .953 OPS. The one thing that kind of caps his upside is they have another catcher who's better defensively, Pedro Pajes. So I think Herrera, you should expect around 100 games played this upcoming season. But if he does that, I think he can hit for a good batting average, 10-ish home runs, chip in a handful of steals. A pretty sneaky catcher, too, to target is Ivan Herrera. Scott, let's go over to a breakout at catcher. Who do you have here?
Breakout is actually going pretty late in drafts here, but Alejandro Kirk, I do think, fits the description of a breakout. He's sort of like Sean Murphy, never got to take full advantage of his skill set because he was splitting time with Danny Jansen, who got traded to the Red Sox for the second half last year. And during that time, Jansen was out of the picture and Alejandro Kirk was finally able to become a full-time player. Had an OPS around 750. Strikeout rate has always been very low for him. He hits the ball reasonably hard. And only 26 years old still. Also, look at the defensive metrics for Kirk. Those really stand out too. So I think now that Jansen's out of the picture, he's going to get a lot of playing time. And I think you shouldn't draft him outside of 2 catcher leagues probably, but I think there's the upside for him to make an impact in that format.
All right, let's take a quick break, and I'll give you my breakout pick at catcher right after this.
I feel home when I see the faces that remember my own. When I'm with my friends, I feel home.
Welcome back in FBT Express, my breakout at catcher this year. I'm kind of cheating. I'm going with someone who's been around for a while, and that is Wilson Contreras. For the reason I mentioned earlier, he's moving over to first base, but he still has catcher eligibility for fantasy. So this is going to be a bit of a cheat code here because Wilson Contreras, assuming health, is going to get just everyday playing time, and that's going to be a huge advantage in fantasy baseball this upcoming season. Also, he's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career. I think standing him up, getting him out of a crouching position, moving over to first base, this is something that can help Wilson Contreras potentially stay on the field. And he's also still just a really good offensive producer when he has played. He has the second highest OPS, 828, and the third highest ISO, 211, among catchers over the past 3 years. So you give him that type of production and he does that over 140, 150 games. I think Willson Contreras might have the upside to finish as the top catcher in fantasy this season. Scott, let's go over to a bust, a catcher you are avoiding in 2025.
I like your picks, by the way, for sleeper and breakout. But my bust pick, to me, it's the only one I can really get behind as a bust, at least relative to value, and that's Logan O'Hoppe, who, on average, is going ahead of both JT Realmuto. He's going ahead of JT Realmuto, which doesn't make sense. And I think there's a good chance he'll finish behind players like Gabriel Moreno, too, because as much as Travis d'Arnaud held Sean Murphy back in Atlanta, now he's with Logan O'Hoppe in Los Angeles, signed to a 2-year deal early in the offseason. A guy who really should probably be a starting catcher himself, is always well liked and well respected, and I think he's going to end up taking a lot more time from Logan O'Hoppe than people imagine. It's sort of like with Sean Murphy in Atlanta, not going to be a true starter backup scenario. And I think Logan O'Hoppe's own performance is going to contribute to this, because after the All-Star break last year, Logan O'Hoppe hit 196 with a 578 OPS. He hasn't been the plate discipline standout he was billed to be coming up through the minors. And he hasn't lived up to expectations overall, I'd say. So I mainly it's the playing time issue for Logan O'Hoppe that's going to make him not live up to his ADP, but I have performance questions there too.
Yeah, the ADP for Logan O'Hoppe, 147.4 as the 9th catcher off the board. Honestly, if Travis d'Arnaud wasn't there, I think I can make another breakout case for Logan O'Hoppe, but I do agree. I think the playing time is just very clearly capped here for someone like O'Hoppe. My bust pick, and I don't think he's going to flat out bust. I don't think he's going to ruin you if you take him or anything, but I'm just never going to be the first person to take a catcher in fantasy drafts. So William Contreras, I guess I'm going to call him a bust here. I just think he's a little bit overvalued. I'm not going to use a 3rd round pick on a catcher. I totally understand that he has been the top catcher in fantasy the past couple of years. He is the betting favorite to do that again here in 2025, but just a position that comes with inherently more risk, playing behind the plate and taking foul balls off the mask. And there's just more chance for injury here. And I'm just not going to use a 3rd round pick on a catcher, but I think William Contreras will probably just be totally fine. Catcher that you're most likely to draft this season, Scott, who is a catcher 1 and a catcher 2 that you see yourself draft? I mean, it's probably names that we mentioned, right? I imagine.
Yeah. William Contreras, I actually might end up drafting most often, because if he's there in round 4, there's a good chance I'm taking him. I think he's clearly number 1 at the position. I know you just made the case against doing that. And it's not like I'm dead set on taking him, but I have so little preference for what follows William Contreras that I think by virtue of him being the top one, he might end up being my most drafted. Normally, I'm going to go the cheap route at catcher. So if it's a 2-catcher league, the number 2 I'll most likely draft is probably Alejandro Kirk, just because I can probably get him in the last round or 2.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today Express, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.